We're live.
We're going to talk about hooks tonight. This is one of the most unattractive things that I'll ever talk about in the app. In the Straight Up Fishing app, I have probably somewhere between 500 to 700 videos, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find one single workshop, one single video about how to choose the right hooks. Yet, if you think about it, every single bait that you got in your tackle box, your boat, your kayak, on the end of your rod has got one thing in common. All of them got hooks in them. We don't have a bait. If it comes with hooks, that's fine. But even if it doesn't come with a hook, we got to put a hook in it. Yet it's one of the things that we don't talk about enough. We don't stress it enough. Having the right hook is essential. Catching fish, covering water efficiently, we're going to talk about that. And just having a good fishing trip all together. You got to have the right fishing hook. So that's what we're going to talk about today is how to choose the right hook, what steps do we take to get there, and how that's going to affect our fishing in the future. So let's just jump right into it. I think this is something that in the beginning is probably going to seem very boring and elementary, but as we get into it, I'm hoping that the way that I'm going to talk to you about this tonight opens your eyes to possibly, number one, some mistakes that you could potentially be making in your hook choices. And this is not about brands on this video. This is more about hook styles, gauges, and understanding the relationship between your rod, your line, and your hook. That's all we want to talk about right here. This has nothing to do with brands. I won't even mention a brand unless y'all ask me about a brand tonight. So if you're watching on Facebook, come and join us on the community section on the Straight Up Fishing app so you can get your questions submitted and we can answer them tonight. Sometimes I do try to go back on Facebook and look at the comments there to try to catch up with you guys, but for sure, I will make sure I get your attention tonight if you're inside of the Straight Up Fishing app. So I have a couple slides to present to y'all tonight. One thing that I mentioned in the community section of the app earlier today is remember the Wheel of Fortune. So I figured that was something that just about everybody can relate to because most of y'all here in the app, y'all are my age or older. Most of you, 40s, mid 30s to 40s, mid 30s to probably 50s is our core group, right? And just about everybody done seen the Wheel of Fortune. And what I'm going to refer to the Wheel of Fortune is a formula of three things working together to help you catch the fish. Simple as that. And when you get one of those items out of alignment, you get one of those items not working, one of those items is too big or too small, that's when you start to have problems. You start to lose fish. You bend hooks out. You break line. All the things that we hate to happen on the water. So, Mike, let's just jump into those slides right now. By the way, I hope if y'all fishing the Straight Up Fishing Classic, the King of the Ring tournament, we're coming in on week 3, I want to say. I should have looked at the standings today. I didn't look at the standings since probably Thursday or so. But y'all been catching them. Y'all been putting down some weight. If y'all are not in the tournament, you get your chance to register for the next tournament. I want to say is it August. Registration will open up here very soon for the second tournament. So make sure you get in these. This is a great way. It's a free tournament for everybody that is a member of the Straight Up Fishing app, or if you just buy anything at shopblat.com during the registration period. Anything at all. Okay? Anything. It don't matter. $1, 50 cents, $2,000. Everybody gets, I'm like Oprah when it comes to tournament fishing. There ain't no entry fees. That's everybody been talking about. We don't need entry fees in bass fishing. I was the first one to give y'all no entry fee. Hey, call Bass. Put them on the phone. Call Slick Johnson. Tell him, hey, Louderman's got a tournament with no entry fee. All right, I probably shouldn't have said that. I don't want to be on Slick Johnson stuff. Okay, let's go. The Wheel of Fortune. When we talk about these hooks, what we're talking about is a wheel. And for a wheel to perform the way it needs to do, it needs to be the same all the way around the outside of the whole wheel. Needs the inside. It all needs to be the same, or that wheel gets a lump in it and you get vibration and it throws your car out of alignment. It vibrates, bolts loose. Has anybody ever had? I know somebody in the apps probably had a car with alignments bad. I know I had my first couple of trucks were trash, and sometimes something would be out of alignment. You get a lot of vibration. You get up to about 45 miles an hour, and that thing starts. Some of y'all driving one like that right now. But the Wheel of Fortune, you see, there's 3 items in this Wheel of Fortune, which is going to help us understand how we choose the right hook when we go to our tackle box. There's 3 elements. There's the rod. What I mean by the rod, how heavy or how light of power or action that rod is. For y'all that are from the country like me, I don't even want to talk about the powers and actions. How stiff or how limber the rod is. Okay? Some of y'all need, I know how it is. Some of y'all relate to verbiage that says medium heavy, power, action, taper. What's the other word that everybody says when you're talking about rods? It drives me crazy. The parabolic bend of a rod. Bro, go jump off a bridge if that's what you say. Parabolic blend of your rod. How parabolic or how unparabolic it is. Stiff or limber. That has a lot to do with the type, size, diameter hook that you're going to use. Your line. Not only the line size has a lot to do with what type or what style or what diameter or what size hook you have, but not only the line size, but the line composition. What I mean by that is, for most of us, just fluorocarbon or braid. I know people, every time I do that, somebody says, well, what about copolymer? Well, what about mono? All I use is mono. That's good, buddy. All we're saying is, what composition line? Is it some type of nylon line or is it braid? There's hooks that we should only use with straight braid, and there's hooks that we could use with braided fluorocarbon or straight fluorocarbon. Okay? And the actual hook itself. There's certain hooks that I'm going to use in certain baits. There's certain hooks that I'm going to use for certain techniques. There's certain hooks that I'm going to use for certain presentations. We need to know all that information so we choose the right hook. So, with the Wheel of Fortune, you see I got on this slide, when these elements are balanced, the more likely we are to land a bass. And then also, listen, when we talk about hooks, this is something we don't talk about a lot. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation. This will go pretty fast, so get your questions ready. Go start teeing them up if you haven't already in the chat section on the app. When you're talking about hooks, not only do hooks affect your catch to land ratio, do you realize that hooks also affect the action that your bait has? So I live on a clear water spotted bass fishery, Lake Hartwell, Lake Russell, Lake Huey. Now, as odd as it sounds, Clark's Hill. When we get to this time of the year, dude, our fish get, I just assume, y'all, if y'all been watching my stories on Instagram and Facebook, I don't even want to go fishing. Like, why would I put myself through that? Because the fish get so picky this time of the year. And it's a time where you really got to pay attention to your size hooks, because the size of your hook, it affects, especially if we're talking about soft plastics, it affects the action, the fall rate of your bait. And so you can't go out there with a number 2 drop shot hook. Now, you're going to have to downsize that stuff. You can't go out there with a 2-aught drop shot hook. You can't go out there with a 4-aught rebarb in your drop shot worm. It don't work as good because the fish become more peculiar. You can do that in March. You can throw a bargain pin in March and probably catch one. Don't try it in July, August, sometimes over even into September. I don't know what the relationship is between water temperature and bass being really finicky like that, but I do know that that is a thing. And it works on both sides of the spectrum. It can be when it's really cold, they get really specific on certain things. It can be when it's really hot. But it seems to be when it's really hot is when it's really a problem. So your hook size, your hook type, your hook style affects your bait action, fall rate, etc. And then here's the last thing. I don't think we ever factored this into our equation to our wheel of fortune that we're building here. We're going to build a wheel of elements that are going to work for us to help us put these bass in the boat. Do you ever realize, listen to this, do you ever realize that your hook composition, size, style, frame, do you realize that that also affects how much the hook, how much your bait snags, how efficient you are? I'll draw an example for you. I love to flip with a straight shank hook. Anybody else flip with straight shank hooks? Okay, straight shank hooks work great for flipping hydrilla, submerged vegetation. But when you start flipping bushes, when you start flipping any kind of snaggy wood, I'm not going to say that I don't use a straight shank, but it's not the best option. It snags a little more. And little key elements like that, little subtle changes like that, where if I hang, listen, think about this. Think about this. In a week of tournament week, if I have a setup where I can hang just 3 less times over 3 days, over 4 days, over 6 days of fishing, that can add up to hours of fishing time added or taken away from me. Hours of fishing time. You know how many pitches and flips I can make to baits in hours? So you can see how this stuff is really important. It's not quite as unattractive as you might think, or just not sexy. This is stuff that's really important. We'll talk about colors all day long. We'll talk about how should you use this crankbait or that crankbait all day long. But when it comes to this stuff that actually really matters, this is where we tend to just fade away. Find something else to do. Go watch the ball game or something else. No, bro, you need to be on the line. We'll be on it now because I don't want to hear your stories at the weigh-in. I don't want to hear your stories after the Straight Up Fishing King of the Ring tournament's over about how you lost that biggin. We tried to tell you, Jared. We tried to tell you the right hook to use. So this is the lie where you're going to learn the right thing. So as I said, we're going to build a hook. You see that? And I want to point out something. I intentionally did this on this diagram that you're looking at. If you're looking at the diagram on the screen, you can see hook, line, and sinker. You can see how it goes both ways. So you got arrows that's going clockwise and you got arrows that's going counterclockwise. The reason I did that is because the hook, the rod, and the line, they all depend on each other to work. It's not, the line is not more important than the hook. The rod is not more important than the line. The hook is not more important than the line. The hook is not important in there. It's all, you need all of it to make a complete circle. I'll tell you how important it was. At first, when I drew this diagram, it was a triangle. And I took it away because a triangle is really not a good diagram to represent what we're talking about here, because all three of these elements work interchangeably. You take one out, now you don't have a wheel. You got something else. When you take a square, you add one. If you take a triangle and you add one more leg to it, now you can make a square. And that's really not what we're dealing with here. This is very, very important. Okay. All right, Mike, let's go to the next slide. Hey, y'all probably thought I was just going to show y'all a bunch of hooks and tell you which one was best. I am going to do that. But first, we need to get super elementary and get to the bare bones purpose of why we have hooks, why we have different style of hooks, why we have different actions and powers of rods, why we have different types of line. Because most of us are just buying different types of line. Most of us are just buying different types of rods because somebody on YouTube told us that that's the best rod to buy. And it might have even been me to tell you that, and you listen to me. But even though it was me telling you that, I really want you to understand why I said that. Because I know if you understand why I said that, then you can take that, you can duplicate that to everything. And this hook sermon that I'm about to talk about, the only thing we're going to talk about is soft plastic hooks. The only thing we're going to talk about tonight is soft plastic hooks. And the reason being is, if you understand the principle of pairing these three elements up with soft plastics, which I know everybody fishes, then you can take the same principle and apply it to hard baits, apply it to jerk baits, apply it to top orders. Apply it to every bait that you have in your tackle box. You just need to understand the principle. I don't need to give you a brand. I don't need to give you a style hook. Maybe I could give you a style hook. But I don't need to give you a brand. I don't necessarily have to show you what I use. What I need to show you is why we use different style hooks and take those principles and apply them to different baits and to different scenarios. Then you can use them everything. Remember, we talk about this in the app so much. Everything, if you come up with a process of figuring things out, you can figure out anything. Just figuring something out isn't good enough. You want to figure out the process. Why are we doing the process that way? So that's what we're going to do tonight. All right, while we lose bass, listen, did I use the right lose there? Because I struggled with this and I didn't have enough time to search it up on Google. I know I could have did that. Is it the 2 O's or is the 1 O? Because this is bothering me really bad. Did I use the right one, Michael? I hope I did. That's driving me crazy.
I do believe you did.
Oh, that one drives me. Listen, y'all. Lose and loose and choose and chose, they eat me up. I'm not that bad at grammar, and then when I do mess up on social and grammar, it is literally like a typo, not necessarily I didn't know. It's a typo. These two, I don't know. I'll sit there and look at it and scratch my head. I'll scratch the gray out of my head trying to figure it out. Anyway, why we lose bass? Why do we lose bass? I want you to look at these 3 little diagrams, little artworks. I worked hard on this. Y'all look at this. Give me a rent. I worked hard on this artwork for y'all. I wanted to draw a picture for you. All right, so there's 3 little diagrams. I'm looking at it with you right here on my computer. You see where it says, let's look at that first one where it's like a little seesaw, fulcrum looking thing. You can see I've got the rod on one side. You can see I got the line on one side, and in the middle there's the hook. This is a perfect example of what I was talking about, how you can't have one right and then the other 3 be out of balance. The hook is in the middle, which we know on a seesaw should balance it all out if you have the right weight on both sides of the seesaw. But in this diagram, the line is too big, but the rod is too little, even though the hook is the right hook. And what does it do? It throws everything off of balance, even though that is leaning the wrong way, but that ain't the point. You get my point. Okay, so that's just showing you the same thing that I'm trying to tell you verbally. If one of the elements isn't right, the seesaw doesn't balance and it throws things out of alignment. Look at the one in the middle. This one is more relating to how I was talking about. We're building this wheel of fortune, and we want our wheel to be balanced, and we want everything to be the same within our wheel so we don't get vibration and mess up alignment and have our shaking the feelings out of our teeth when we're going down the road at 60 miles an hour. See how that wheel in the middle is more shaped like an egg? That's because potentially in any given scenario, our rod or our line might be too big for the hook that we have. You see how the hook is at the narrow spot and then the line of the rod is at the more robust part at the bottom? Let me tell you what that would look like in real life. What that would look like is, imagine if I took, let's just take something everybody I feel like in the app should know about. Imagine if I took my SMH head, an 1/8 ounce shaky head. I tied it on my flipping rod, a 7/8 heavy level NGX, and then I put my bait caster on there and I tied it to 50-pound test katana braid. Straight to the braid, straight, no lead or nothing. Okay, I throw that thing out there. And I get ready to set the hook like Macho Man. Let me tell you something. What happens? You see, that's the scenario that I'm trying to draw there. Even though the hook that I put in my SMH worm on that jig head is the right jig head and the right hook for that worm, if my line and my rod are too stiff, my line is too big or the wrong composition, I'm going to have problems. You're going to have problems. How many of y'all have ever come back to weigh in to hear somebody complaining about how they opened up a hook and it's almost like a badge of honor? Y'all ever heard anybody do that? That badge on, boy, I threw it in, I flipped it in, and I set the hook in. Boy, I straighten the hook out. Straighten the hook out. It's one thing I get so frustrated with when people will talk about my favorite Ned rig head is and forever will be the Z-Man Finesse Shrooms, the original. It's a light wire hook. Cannot tell you how many times I've heard people say, I don't like that hook because I open it up. Bro, what do you do? What kind of equipment do you have to take a steel hook and open up a steel hook with nylon line? Your Wheel of Fortune is out of balance, good buddy. The Nedlocks is a stiffer wire, bigger gauge hook. And I'm telling you, the hookup ratio is not as good. If you want to have a smallmouth, throw your Ned rig head a lot. Use that Nedlocks. I use the Nedlocks when I go saltwater fishing. I need that on a 10-pound redfish. I don't need that on a 4-pound smallmouth. I don't need that on a 5-pound smallmouth. I got line to manage the tension with. I have a rod that I can use to manage the tension with. That fish is going to be in open water. I don't need to catch up with him anymore. And the fact that I'm using a rod that's lighter action, I'm using line that's lighter action because I got a little bitty bait, I can present the bait better. I can just do the job better with that. Simple. Okay? So hopefully that scenario helps you understand what I'm talking about. Something else we don't talk about. Okay, so you can see my last little diagram on the very far right there. See the guy's out of balance. He's trying to figure out what he's going to do. This is something, you guys, I take people in the app fishing quite a bit. I just took Nathan Sipes fishing at Clarks Hill last week. We had a good time, 4-hour trip. We ended up catching 5 or 6 bites and actually had a really good lesson that we're going to put together. That lesson should be done maybe by the end of the week. Maybe we'll get it up next week. About just catching fish shallow in the summertime. It's one thing everybody says. You got to go deep when it gets shallow. You got to go deep when it gets hot. Ironically, as soon as it gets cold, what does everybody say? You got to go deep. That's not how fishing actually works. We ended up catching our fish. It's 91 to 93 degree water and water where you can see the bottom. But I was saying that to say this. I take people fishing all the time. One of the things that I noticed that most people, the most common mistake is their gear is either too light for the bait that they're trying to throw, or their gear is too heavy, too big for the bait they're trying to throw. And so it throws them off of balance, like this guy in the photo that you see. He's off. He's just trying to teeter-totter. And when you have equipment that's not in alignment with the bait that you're throwing, you're just out of sync. Just doesn't work good. Go try to throw that wacky rig on a bait caster. You can throw it a little bit. You can throw it a little bit. As soon as the wind gets up, you're out of balance. As soon as you really need to put it in a tight space, you're out of balance. Now, I know there's somebody in the comment section, well, Braun, I just so much better than bait caster. I can skip it up under there. Come on, little side. I already know somebody's doing that. Good job, Jacob. Jacob Wilcox, I'm not talking about you. I'm just a random rhetorical person. You're more efficient with the right gear. When you don't have your Wheel of Fortune set up right, it throws you off of balance. Imagine me trying to throw, I had a glide bait laying somewhere. For instance, let's just say even with a frog. This is one of those depths frogs. I could throw that on a spinning rod. For some reason, it just don't work that good. You're just out of balance trying to throw this in pads. Spinning rods are great for throwing light tackle. One of the biggest fails with spinning rods is your ability to stop the cast from going too far. With a bait caster, I can use my thumb to modulate the line speed, the spool speed, and get the lure to slow down easier. With a spinning reel, I don't have a way to slow the line down. Now, I do use a little technique to do it, but it's not as efficient as a bait caster in that mode. However, on the very reverse of that, with the bait caster, the line comes off so fast that oftentimes when you're throwing something light, The line comes off the spool faster than it exits the reel because the lure is too light and you get a backlash. So that's when we use the spinning reel. All of these elements have to line up for us to be able to catch our bass. Okay. Look at those three things at the bottom. I know y'all all heard all three of those things, and usually these are the results of having a bad hook, having the wrong hook, having the hook with the wrong diameter steel, having a hook that's just the wrong composition. By composition, I mean shape, frame. There's different style hooks: straight shank, offsets, drop shot hooks, mosquito hooks. There's all these different frames of hooks. Usually when you have the wrong hook, or when you have any element of the wheel of fortune out of balance, you're going to get one at least these three things. One of at least these three things. Your hooks are going to bend out. If you're bent, listen to me, folks. Your hooks bending out on a fish does not mean the fish was so big. It's not a badge of honor that you had a hook straighten out on a fish in a mat under a dock. That is not a badge of honor. That does not mean that the fish was so big that he straightened it out. It means your setup was so bad that when you put pressure on the fish, you straighten the hook out. You did it. You did it. You don't get to blame the fish. That fish wasn't that big. It was 2 pounds. He was wrapped around the pole and you pulled too hard and came back with a straight hook. That fish was 2 pounds. Stop telling them lies. So straighten out your hook. Your setup is off. If you're straightening out hooks, your setup is off. If you're straightening up hooks, your setup is off. If you're straightening out hooks, your setup is off. You need a better hook, or you need lighter line and a lighter rod. Ain't got nothing to do with the fish. Or you don't know how to use your drag. That's another workshop. We ain't gonna do that tonight. Okay. Your line's breaking. Your line's breaking. Constantly your line's breaking on hook sets, fighting fish, pulling them into the boat. You got the wrong line. Or your hook. Or your rod. It's too stiff. Too fast. Or you're just losing a bunch of fish. Maybe you're just losing a bunch of fish. EWG guys. I got an overhead. We're gonna do some overhead tonight where I look at the camera. Look at some hooks. I'm sorry. We're gonna look at some hooks. And I'm gonna show you why EWG's hooks are trash buns. Somebody always says, well, Brian, I've been using EWGs for 42 years and I don't have no problems. That's the dairy guy. He's lying. It's like a guy with an Evinrude. Guys, I ain't never had a problem with Evinrude. Man, come on, bro. Barty, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about my other Evinrude owners. He got the Zook now. I can't tell you how many times I had people tell me I never had a problem with my, other than 4 lower units and 2 power heads, my Evinrude never lets me down. that's what all they used to all say. This is the 250 G2 guys. Man, I've only had to put 3 lower units, 2 power heads, and 8 stagers on this thing. But other than that, it don't give me no problem. I got 10 years warranty. I shouldn't even be saying that right now. Last slide. Michael.
While I bring that up, I will say, and there've been a few comments that these are some high quality slides. I think
high quality
some of your best.
High quality. I'll work on them again. Y'all gassing me up. I'll have slides on everything. I'll have a workshop of slides in the app tomorrow. All right. So I done said a whole bunch tonight, right? I've been talking about all this stuff about how you got to pick it right in this Wheel of Fortune. I got you thinking about that woman that was on Wheel of Fortune back in the day. It was so pretty. And didn't the guy die? I don't know why I'm talking about that. Where's the rubber meet the road? How do I know what to pick the hook? I won't know what hook to pick. We're going to go to my overhead behind me here. What do we need to consider? We always reverse engineer things. You remember I just told y'all that I wanted to show you the process. Because when I show you these hooks back here, they're all for plastics. And there's a few jig heads. And somebody's going to say, well, what about crankbaits? Well, what about prop baits? What about top waters? You take the same process and apply it to crankbaits. Take the same process, take the same mentality and apply it to lipless crankbaits. Take the same mentality and apply it to every bait, every species, crappie, striper, redfish, trout, whatever you ever fish for, peacock bass, you can apply these same principles to the hook formula that you'll use for those baits and lures and fish species too. Okay? What to consider first? Very simple. Where are we fishing? Where am I putting this bait? Where am I putting this bait? When I go to Okeechobee and I flip my Texas rig and some Thule's, it will not be the same line, rod, and or hooks that I use when I go. Where am I going next? Let's see. Where did I fished Pickwick and I caught a few fish in practice flipping there. It ain't the same setup. My rod's not the same, which means that my line can't be the same, which means that my hooks can't be the same. When I'm flipping bushes, my line, my rod, and my hooks are not the same as the Texas rig that I'll pitch into a hydrilla mat, or lily pads, or docks. Is not the same setup. Neither three of the Wheel of Fortune are the same. They're different. Number one, I'm going to use a different type of line, which means I need a different rod, which means I need a different hook. I'll show you what that looks like on the overhead. Just hang out. What size baits do I have? Do you use in an old monster? Will you use the same hook that you'll use in a SMH worm? Absolutely not. Do you wear sneakers with a Sunday suit? Some of you do, but just go along with the conversation, please. Some of that looks cool sometime, but I don't think I want to ever do that. I'm past that now at 42. Anyway, you don't do that. You don't do that. What technique? Certain hooks I'll use for casting, and certain hooks I use for flipping, and certain hooks I use for presenting a drop shot in open water, dropping it straight down, and certain hooks that I use for putting a drop shot in a laydown. They're all different. What is the technique? Then that gives me a hook to use. Once I have a hook to use, I find my line to use. And when I have a line, I figure out what line I'm using, then I figure out which rod I use. It goes backwards. I can do it the other way, which really is still the same way, because it's a wheel. It's rolling no matter what you talk about. You can say, well, I'm going to be flipping bushes today. Well, that means I'm going to get my flipping rod. Well, if I get my flipping rod, then I know I got to get my either braid or 20-pound plus line. Well, if I get my braid or 20 plus pound line, that means I got to go get my straight shank flipping hooks. You see how the wheel rolls either way. No matter how you do it, it's still rolling. A wheel rolls in reverse or it goes forward. It don't matter which way you pick it. No matter which way you do it. You can do the rod first or you can do the hook first. Because it's a wheel. It's a wheel of fortune. It can go either way. Okay? The rod and the line size and composition determines which hook I use. I won't use the same hooks with braid as I do with fluorocarbon. With braided fluorocarbon, yes, there's going to be some blending. There's going to be some crossover. But if I'm going straight braid, those hooks aren't the same. They're not the same. What's our chat looking like? Should we answer some questions before I go over to the overhead?
Yeah, I'm just digging through them right now.
Let's see.
So Jacob Wilcox said, can you explain how you use the drag on a bait caster? I
don't use.
Generally have it tight except on crankbaits, but I still don't give it much give.
This pisses people off when I say this. I'm going to upset. Let's just say there's 100 people on the live tonight. There's not. Let's just say if there's 100 people, 97 of y'all are going to be pissed off at me about this. Okay, y'all about to call the police on me. I don't use the drag on bait casters. Now, what you heard me when I say I don't use the drag on bait casters, what most of you heard is I shouldn't have said that. I lock down the drag system on the bait caster, and my thumb is the drag. I free spool. This get an argument about this all the time. The drag on bait caster is designed to bind. It's not designed to freely let line slip like it does on a spinning rod. So the problem with that is you'll notice this on a bait caster, it'll go zip, 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 which is horrible when you're fighting a big fish. You don't want the line going zip, zip, because every time it goes zip, it's slack. And every time it stops, it's instant tension. You want to break a fish off? Get instant tension. You want a fish to come unbuttoned? Get instant slack. Instant slack, instant tension. It's that zip, zip, zip. You don't want that. And that's all every bait cast. Listen, y'all, I fish for a living. I got the best equipment there is. Not to toot my own horn. I'm going to get the best rods and reels there is. I don't slack on that. I'm going to get the highest one there is or the best one it is for the job. I've had them all. It simply does not matter. Every time I say that, somebody says, well, you need to get better equipment, because if you get better equipment, then the drag will slip on a bait caster will be good. No, that's not how it works, because that's not what it's designed for. It's not what it's designed for. It's just like when let me give you this analogy. Since there's mostly men in here that drive trucks, you will be able to relate to this. I know I don't have all men, I'm saying it's mostly men. And some of you, the women, are going to be able to relate still. That is just like me saying, I have a Ford F-250. That sumbug is hard as crap to park in the grocery store parking lot. I can't turn that thing around in a football field. It's the 4-door, long, it ain't a long bed, short bed, but it's a straight axle. So it just does not turn well. But on the highway, I'll eat y'all up. It rides like a Cadillac because it's a long wheelbase. Okay, that's just like me saying, when you say, oh, well, yeah, you just got to buy a more expensive truck and it'll park good. No, it's long. It ain't designed to park. It's not designed to park. It's designed to pull. That's what you sound like when you say, oh, well, if you buy good equipment, then your drag will work good. No, that's not what you buy a truck for. You buy a truck to pull big stuff with. You buy a truck to haul big crap. You don't buy it to park. If I want to park, I'd buy a Prius. Same scenario. It would be like me having a Prius and you tell me, well, if you just buy the right Prius, then it would pull your boat. No, Gerald. It won't pull the boat because it's designed to be fuel efficient. Bait casters are designed to bind. Spinning reels are designed to throw finesse gear. I know, and now I'm going to have somebody in the saltwater sections that saltwater, I catch 400-pound grouper on a spinning rod. Bro, that ain't the same thing that we use in bass fishing. It's not the same thing. And we don't use those setups in bass fishing the same way you do in saltwater. I'm a saltwater fisherman, and I know that. Saltwater fishermen aren't precisely presenting baits in little small areas. You're just throwing them out in the middle of the ocean or in the middle of the bay or at an oyster bar where you can miss it by 8 feet. We are literally threading the needle by inches at times. That's why our equipment is more important. That's why I obsess over equipment more in freshwater, because we're putting baits in little bitty areas. Our fish have more pressure on them. There's a big difference there. Going back to the original subject, bait casters, lock it down or at least pretty close to lockdown. Learn how to thumb your drag. Learn how to thumb the spool. You can trust it better. You're not going to ruin. I saw one guy say that's how you blow up reels. Oh my God, bro. You're not going to blow up your reel on the 3-pound bass for clicking it over. So what that looks like, you get it down at least pretty stiff, pretty tight. You don't have to lock it down, but pretty doggone tight. That way you get a good hook set when you're reeling your crankbait. You get a good hook set on your Carolina rig or Texas rig or whatever. As you get, listen, and I do this if I got a fish on a 50-pound test braid at the boat, I still free spool it because your line doesn't have everything to do with how you're modulating tension. I see it in the comments in my videos all the time. Will you hurry up and flip that fish in the boat? It's not because the fish is 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 4 pounds, 10 pounds. It's how the fish is hooked. If you got a 2-pounder that's barely hooked in his mouth and you got your drag locked down and you go to boat flipping and you tear that skin and you lose the fish, bro, those fish are worth thousands of dollars. So you modulate the tension on the line. Even if I got 50-pound test braid and a 7/8 hook, 7/8 flipping stick, I'm still going to modulate the tension when that fish runs because I don't want to rip the hook out of the fish's mouth. Drag is about modulating the tension on the line. It's not about the size fish. It is somewhat, the line size is a part of the formula, and it's about modulating tension. This could be a whole workshop that I would love to go in because it's one of the most misunderstood things in fishing. I see it in comments all the time. I see it anytime one of the leagues posts a fish catch and a pro is fighting the fish. It makes me gag on freaking elephant doo-doo. Every time I listen to somebody go, hurry up and flip that fish in the boat. Bro, ounces make classics. Ounces make AOIs. Ounces are worth thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. Requalifications online. It's not all about 8-pounders and glide baits in the world of professional fishing. Okay? It's not all about that. It's about ounces many times. It's about calling a 1.6 for 1.5 many times. A 2-pound 2-ounce for a 2 even many times. Those are big fish. Okay? You get me on a tangent. I'm going on down all the way down the line. Anyway, back to your question about drag. Lock it down. Learn how to free spool it with your thumb. You're going to lose way less fish. Way less fish. Okay. Since I went on a 10-minute tangent about that.
Before you actually move on, I want to make sure. So you got a lot of folks telling you how easy it should be to park your truck in the parking lot. I want to make sure everybody that you got the point he was making was not about how hard it is to park a truck, right? So, sorry.
Did they go down that one? Like, oh yeah, well, what you got to do is put it in reverse and put it back and forward, and then put it in double reverse. So if you,
it was an analogy, guys.
If you got a guy that's 60 over, he's like, well, if you didn't have automatic and straight drive like we had, you'd be able to throw that thing in there easily. That's not the point. That's not the point. You buy bait casters. You buy bait casters to bind. You buy big trucks to pull, not to park. That's the analogy I was trying to draw. Maybe I confused everybody with that. Right. But yes, definitely tighten that drag down on your bait casters. Learn to use your thumb and free spool that. It's a very advanced skill. Don't do it in the tournament for the first time. But I tell people this all the time. You know how I learned that? Striper fishing. Fishing for redfish, saltwater fishing. Go practice it on some big fish. If you got striping, go catch some catfish. Learn how to free spool. Go catch some catfish on 10-pound test on your bait caster and learn how to free spool that. Learn how to fight a catfish with 10-pound test line on your bait caster. That will teach you how to manage line tension. Go catch a really big fish on your bait caster with smaller than normal line. It will teach you everything you need to know about line tension and modulation. That would be my advice to you. Don't go try it in your tournament because then you're going to blame me for it. You're going to get your PB on and then we got a problem. Y'all going to be blaming me trying to get Apple to shut my app down. No, we ain't doing that. Go try it on alternate species. I tell y'all this all the time. Fishing for other species, it grows your skill set. It grows your skill set exponentially. So go do that. We see any other questions?
So there's a pros and cons with different types of weed guards on hooks.
I don't use weed guards on hooks. Question is pros and cons on weed guards with hooks. I don't use a wacky rig guard, weed guard on my hooks. I just don't use those. I if I need a wacky, if I need a guard, I figure I probably need another bait. And yes, somebody's gonna say, "Well, I threw out a bunch of weeds." You know where I catch most of my fish on a wacky rig at is in Florida, in the heaviest weeds. I don't use, and I'm assuming that's what he's talking about is weed guards on wacky rig hooks. I don't do those. I'm gonna show you my wacky rig hook here in just a little bit. Yeah, I see conversation too. Not a whole lot of questions here, which maybe is good. Maybe that means I'm explaining everything. Okay. What are you using? Flipping deep into laydowns. So MacToon is asking, what are you using flipping deep into laydowns? Using straight shank. So this is a great question. Mac is asking what type of hook I like to use for flipping laydowns. So Mac, actually, when it comes to wood, I'm not saying that I won't use a straight shank, but I don't believe a straight shank is your best option. I think an offset worm hook is your best option. It won't hang as bad. A straight shank hook it's gonna snag every time you roll it over a limb pretty aggressively. Another thing is people don't think about this. Okay, let me see if I got a hook here. So for an offset hook, I don't know how well you can see it. That's why I was gonna do the overhead. We're getting a little ahead of me. See this is an offset. See the 90-degree, the two 90-degree angles. What that does, it does reduce the bite on the hook a little bit. A line tie hook point. I call that the bite. The difference between the two, I'm calling the bite. Okay? It doesn't totally zero that out, but it does reduce it by, let's just say 50%. I don't know how much it is. For straight shank, let's just say that's 100%. You can see how big that gap, that bite is. Line tie to hook point. It's huge, right? Okay. So the problem is, not only is the problem that when you flip in a laydown with that much gap, that you can, if you pull it over a little too aggressively, you got a lot more to grab that limb and get you snagged up. Not only that, listen to me. You learn this fishing in Florida. Okay. Not only is that a problem, I get the fish on. What? Okay. He's got this hook hanging out his mouth. Since I've got extra hook point, extra hook gap hanging out, hook bite, that's hanging out his mouth. Now the hook point's hanging out of mouth. I got to pull him through all these limbs and laydowns and bushes. You know what that hook point hanging out the other side of his mouth is? The perfect hook remover. Fishing lily pads will teach you this more than anything. And so what I like about a hook like this, the gap is lessened. What I mean from the hook eye to the hook point, it's probably, let's just say it's 50% less. It may not be that much. It's not as much. So when I do hook the fish, I don't have as much metal hanging out the side of his head to grab limbs as I reel him in, lily pads. They're just the perfect, just boop, de-hookers. They're just de-hookers. That's all that stuff is. Or, listen, or it grabs, it's hanging out the side of his mouth. You know, I got him in here, the hook point's hanging out the side of his mouth. It just grabs the limb on the way out and it snags in the limb. Now you hung up with the fish on. Those are real world problems that happens all the time. That's why I think this is the Eagle Claw. I think they call this little pocket like a V-lock or something like that because it reduces that so you don't have as much hook point, so much metal hanging out of the fish's mouth when you're reeling it in so it doesn't get hung in lily pads, hydrilla, limbs, lay down, wood, the dock. You've ever been reeling one in? You got him on. You feel the bite. You do the blackout. John Cena, you can't see me. Go to set the hook. Got him coming. Get about 3-4 turns on him. And you're like, he's stuck. He's stuck. What's going on? You can feel him moving, but he's stuck. Sometimes they do wrap around a pole, of course. Other times it's that hook point hanging out the side of his head, then grab the limb, then grab the lily pad, then grab some grass, and now you done hook the bass and the side of the dock. So that's why I do like, and listen, it ain't gonna be every one, but if it's 1 out of 10, it's worth it. So in my opinion, offset is a better hook for flipping wood. Now, obviously, you're gonna have to match up the gauge wire for your setup. This hook right here would be plenty gauge higher wire to flip like 20-pound test fluorocarbon. When you start moving in the braid, it starts to get a little weird. Which I don't use braid on wood because braid on wood just does not work good. Fluorocarbon on wood always. Fluorocarbon on wood always. Fluorocarbon on wood always. Fluorocarbon on wood always. Never braid on wood. Never.
Mac Toon asked, what bait would you use with that hook? I think he's talking about that hook.
Yeah, whatever. What am I going to flip? Don't matter. So the Gremlin, Brush Hogs, Old Monsters, Mag Fatties, Cincos, Bang Sticks, whatever. What am I flipping? I'm going to put it on that offset worm hook. Any of them. Only time it gets a little weird with an offset worm hook is if, like, let's say if you're flipping a tube, it don't work that good. Z-Man has a creature bait called a Palmetto Bugs. It's kind of thick. I probably wouldn't use this. I'd probably go to straight shank. It's just bulky plastic, thick plastic, and you need more booty in your hook on those thick plastic baits. So for just your traditional plastic, like the Gremlin, the body's not that thick. A lizard, the body's not that thick. A tube's got a lot of plastic on it. And so when you go to the tube, a straight shank is probably going to be a little bit better on hookup ratio because it's just got a lot on it. Let me turn the air on. I'm getting hot, boy. It's still hot at, 9 o'clock tonight? Probably still 90 out there. Okay. Let's see. Did I see anything else in there?
There's one other question that Barty had.
Okay.
And pros and cons with the Megabass Vision 110 hooks.
Okay, so I know about those hooks. Let's cover this first. I don't use the Megabass 110, so very little experience with those hooks, but I know what you're talking about, the reverse barb hooks. I don't have enough experience with you to give you a good answer on that. From my understanding, the only problem is if you get a hook in yourself. The hook trick doesn't work. But I don't use the 110. I don't use those. I still use Loco Special. And I don't even think I throw any other jerkbait. Loco Special. And it's just got traditional hooks. Matter of fact, it's got the Mustad triple grips, which I also do not like. Mustad triple grips have the hook points pointing into the shank. I don't like them kind of hooks. Perfect fish getter offers. And I never change my hooks until game day. I'm not putting my good hooks on for practice because all I want to know is where y'all at. I don't change hooks for that. I change hooks when it matters. So if I'm playing, if I'm shooting TV, doing a workshop, I'm not changing the hooks. I'm not I'll take my risk. And when it comes to game day, I like just regular round bend hooks on my trebles. Regular round bends. But I don't use those hooks, Barty. I'm sure there's somebody in the app probably that. Like, I don't even use the Megabass 110s. I don't even know if I have one. Okay. Let's see. I don't think I see some junk talking about the tournament here. Hey, oh man, I done messed up. Barty said, dude, I ain't never had any problem with my two E-Techs. But he did have the, I think Barty had the 150 or 175, maybe two. Maybe they were a little better. I had an E-Tech on my doggone bay boat for about 6 months. I had to hurry up and got that sucker off of there. You weren't going to grenade on me. Okay, so what I want to do now is we're going to do an overhead. I'm going to show you guys the hooks that I use. And keep in mind these hooks, this is what I'm about to show you. There's a principle that I'm trying to imply to you. This is not about you. You can copy these hooks that I use. I'll more than gladly tell you. I'm going to tell you exactly what they are. If you decide to use something else, that's fine. But I'm going to show you 3 categories of hooks. It's not even 3 categories of hooks. There's 3 categories of 3 scenarios that you need hooks for. I'll go ahead and tell you what they are, and we'll get to. We're just going to take just a brief break. I'm going to switch my camera over so I can get over there with my phone, and we're going to go over to my overhead. There's three. You can make this complicated. Y'all probably think, well, I got to go. Brian said that's the most important thing in fishing. I got to go spend $500 on hooks this weekend. No. Put the wallet down. Get off Amazon. Get off Tackle Warehouse. Get off ShopBelad.com right now. You're not going to do that. You probably already got it. You might need a few more. But there's really only 3 things that you need when it comes to the right hooks. You need finesse hooks, you need standard hooks, and you need heavy cover hooks. It's going to cover everything. It ain't that many hooks. Y'all, I'm about to finish up my tournament season in New York. I started off this year in Florida. It's probably 1,800 miles between Florida to New York. I have about 5 different style hooks. I have 5 different style hooks for everything. All of it. So chill. I'm not giving you permission to spend $500 on some hooks and blow your credit card out. I ain't giving you permission to do that. You just need 5 different styles, and you need to apply them in the right times. That's all. Okay? So we're going to do that. Finesse hooks, standard hooks, and then we need heavy cover flipping hooks. And then sometimes you're going to see where these things overlap each other. All right? Mike, I'm just going to do the phone to move over.
Yeah, just dial in with your phone.
Okay. All right. I'll do that. I'm just going to disappear for a second, and I'll be right back, I guess.
You can stay right there if you want to.
All right. Let's see here. All right.
I'll bring back up one of those beautiful slides. We lost him. Hang in there, guys. We're getting him. You're on vertical. Have you got your phone on mute?
Down.
All right. I turned your other mic back on.
Okay,
How's that sound?
Let me turn that down. Okay. Just a second here. Okay, where's my pen?
There we go.
Hey, is that me making that sound?
It's feedback between we're good now.
Okay. It's on vertical, isn't it? Let's see. I got to try to get
Yeah,
that to
you
change.
probably have to hold the phone level and
Yeah,
then
I got to take it out of this thing. It's kind of a pain in the ass to. Okay, that should get it. It's kind of hard to get in the. Okay,
now
how
it's
about that?
upside down.
It's upside down now. Gosh dang it. Let's see. How about, is that the
There we
same or no?
go.
That's it. Let me see what it looks like. Push this over here.
Thanks for hanging in there, guys.
Okay. Let's see. I think I'll do the regular camera next time because I don't have a way to see what I'm looking at. Oh, well, actually, I can because I can just look at the computer. It's kind of darker than I want it. I wonder why does it do that?
Oh, I was okay. I brightened it up some.
Yeah, is it dark? Is that? Oh, it's not me.
How's that, guys? Can y'all see it? Read it pretty clear.
Is it working at all? Okay. Okay. Let me get. I had a pen. Oh, I was using it on you. All right, I'm ready. If we are, is my audio okay, Mike?
Oh yeah, your audio sounds great. Y'all
Okay.
hear him just
All right.
fine, right?
Everybody hear me good. So we're just going to do just a little brief explanation of those three categories. Remember, I tell you we're going to have basically you really only have three types of hooks that you need to try to figure out how to add. Slide that up a little bit right there. You need finesse hooks, you need standard hooks, and you need heavy duty hooks. And so when I have these three categories, like how do I know a hook is finesse hook or standard hook or heavy duty hook? Okay, so this is a little bit unfair just because I fish so much that I kind of can look at a hook and just decide, oh, that's a 10-pound hook, or oh, that's a 20-pound hook, or that's a really heavy duty hook. That's really not fair. But basically, all we're trying to do is finesse hooks. I'm going to categorize a hook that we as light. I can use as light as 4-pound test line, but probably getting a little weird when you start to use line heavier than 15-pound test with it. On the standard hooks, these are hooks that I can use as as light as 8, maybe even light as 8, but for sure 10-pound to 20-pound test and be just fine. And what I mean by that, I can use 10-pound, 20-pound test to its full maximum strength without worrying about that hook failing on me. I don't have to worry about that hook bending out or having any kind of issues with it as long as I stay under 20-pound test line. And then we have our heavy duty hooks. I'm not sure if you can see that. A heavy duty hook, I'm going to categorize as something that is just 20-pound test plus. 20-pound test plus or braid, straight braid, 30, 40, 50-pound test braid. And when I say the straight braid, guys, I'm not talking about braid to fluorocarbon setup. For you kayak people, a lot of times it does make sense for you to use braid on everything. Fishing out of a kayak is not the same as fishing out of a bass boat. I don't care how hard you want to make it, how much you want to fuss about it. It's not the same. So when you set the hook in a kayak, you don't have as much leverage as you do standing on a deck of a bass boat. If you set the hook standing in a lawn chair versus setting the hook set on flat ground, is completely different. And that's what you're doing in a kayak. You know, one of them little plastic chairs that you buy from Lowe's. When you set the hook in that, you know how it gets wonky real fast. That's what it's like setting the hook in a kayak. Something's got to give, and most of the time it's going to be the chair. And when you're fishing on a kayak, the kayak moves. It's giving away. Okay. So let's look at some hooks. I'm actually gonna listen. Y'all ain't. I've talked all about these hooks. You ain't seen a hook yet in this hour-long live. All right. When it comes to finesse hooks, this is what they're gonna be. Let me slide this back down towards you. I'm talking about finesse hooks. Okay. If you got a finesse hook, number one hook you're gonna need a drop shot hook. And this one is gonna be for like nose hooking. This style right here for nose hooking. Everybody know what I mean by nose hooking a bait? Do I need to demonstrate that? I didn't think about that part. Drop shot hook looks like this. This is gonna be smaller. It's gonna be very light wire hook. Okay. Well, Brian, how light is a light wire? I looked on all the packages of my hooks to see if there was any kind of rating on there, and there is not. You're gonna have to use some context clues and figure it out. Okay. You're gonna compare it to some of the other hooks on the shelves or other hooks in your tackle box. And you're gonna use the lightest wire hook you have for all your finesse fishing. Where you're using most of y'all are not gonna be using 4 pound test line. I don't know why you would. I do that for crappie fishing, but as heavy as 10 pound test is actually a good pound test line to use for a lot of things. We used to do a lot of 6 and 8, but dude, I use no less than 10 anymore. You're gonna need a drop shot hook, light wire drop shot hook. For your finesse fishing, you're gonna need a straight shank. That's gonna be my straight shank right here. I'll put it over here. You're gonna need a straight shank. That one right there, that's a rebarb. That hook is a rebarb. If you don't know what a rebarb hook is, just Google it. I don't have those on my website. Go to Tackle Warehouse or something. That's a 4/0 rebarb. That's the hook when I'm drop shotting a SMH worm. That's the hook that I'm going to use when I'm even sometimes Carolina rigging. When I fished Hartwell, I was using that hook on a Carolina rig because even though I'm using like 15 pound test on a Carolina rig, I lose a lot of leverage because the hook is separated from the sinker and it's on a long cast with straight fluorocarbon. And even though I'm a big, strong, burly black man with a beard that could chop down a 20-foot maple tree, it's hard to set the hook on an 80-foot cast on a Carolina rig, 15, 20 foot deep. You don't have a lot of leverage there. So a finesse hook helps you get penetration because you're fishing deep and on a long cast. So even though I am using 15 pound test line, a lot of that oomph that I'm going to have on a hook set is lost. So that's why I use this hook to ensure I get the penetration. And then I'll learn how to use that line modulation by free spooling because that hook will bend out. If you go try to muscle it in a 5 pounder and boat flipping, do not do that. Okay. Um, this hook right, and listen, I'm about to tell y'all something. Some of these hooks will blend. Some of these finesse hooks will also work in my standard category. And what I mean by standard category, I can go, some of these hooks can handle up to 20 pound test line, but they work much better in this range. 4 is a little bit aggressive. Let's just say 6 pound. That's more bassy. 6 to 10 pound test, use these hooks. And then you see I got another hook here. This looks a lot like that hook, but this is a 2/0. And this is going to be my wacky rig hook. And you're probably going to say, well, Brian, why don't you use this hook for a wacky rig that you use for nose hooking versus this one? It's all about this gap from that point to the line tie. This one has a bigger gap, which allows for the worm to stay right here and just get better hook penetration. It's a bigger hook, which means it works as a weight for me too.
I can cast it further. This hook is lighter wire and heavy and lighter. Doesn't cast that well like a trick worm. This hook is a lot heavier and bigger, and it actually works as a weight for me as well. So that's my wacky rig hook. If you've ever seen me throw a Nico, if you've ever seen me throw a Nico or wacky, it has always been that hook right there. That is a decoy 2-aught wide gap wacky rig hook. Decoy. Decoy is spelled like this, like a duck decoy. It's a decoy 2-aught. That one right there is an owner mosquito. Mosquito has a mosquito light too. And yes, I know that's probably not spelled right. Owner mosquito light. That's even lighter than that. And this is a rebarb. This one up here is a rebarb 4-aught. Okay, standard. Let's go to our standard hooks.
Hey, quick
Remember, I
question.
said some of these hooks that I'm using for finesse are going to also go in this category. For certain situations, they will work for finesse and they will also work for standard. What I mean by standard, all I'm talking about is our line size. What line size do I need to use to present my bait right? 10 to 20 pound test. 20 pounds is pushing it, but you can do it if you're smart enough. Okay, my standard is going to be just my regular worm, offset worm hook. And that's going to be anywhere from 2-aught to 5-aught. That hook I'm going to use for Texas rigs, trick worms, floating worms, your fluke, weightless fluke, a weightless Cinco, this Texas rig, Carolina rigs, light Texas rigs, any of that stuff that you would normally fish, just going down the bank where I'm using 10 to 20 pound tests. Brian, can I use 15-pound test line with this hook? Absolutely, because it's in between 10 and 20. Anything, 17-pound test line, use that hook. 12-pound test line, that's a good hook for that. Okay. Here's the hook that I hate that a lot of people love, and I put it in here because a lot of people love it, but I hate it, and I would just burn it. This is why, and this is a good, so you'll be able to see this really good. Okay, this is why I hate EWG hooks. Look at this right there, and then look at your line tie. So if I pull this way, if I pull that hook that way, you ain't got nothing to get him hooked with, buddy. Look at that. It's just straight in line. This just come right outside his mouth. He really got to be chomping down on that to get a hook in his mouth. I hate them some bucks. I hate this hook. I don't even want to talk about that. I'm not talking about that. Y'all find another video. Find another live to talk about this on. I'm not talking about that hook. It's trash. That hook's trash. I sell them hooks in this trash. That's one of my sponsors' hooks. I don't like EWGs. Get a life if you like them. Okay. Standards. Offset worm hooks. Remember I told you that some of these will blend? The rebarb can handle up to 15-pound tests. The rebarb, you can use obviously for finesse fishing. If you don't know, like Aaron Martin's used this hook for a long time. Eventually he came out with the Gamakatsu, but he used this hook for a long time. You know he's a finesse fisherman. So you can use that, all your drop shot, Texas rig drop shots, stuff like that, up to about 15. I don't think I would trust a rebarb at 20-pound tests, personally. But I think you're good from 6 to 15. Okay? Now, this one, the decoy, it will also go in there. This hook can handle up to 20-pound tests. It's a pretty big gauge hook. And most of the time on my wacky rig, you're going to see me using about 15-pound test fluorocarbon. That hook can handle 20 though. And the reason this hook can handle 20, some of my guys that work in construction or do any kind of machinery work, you can probably understand why, even if this hook is the same diameter, if this rebarb is even the same diameter as this decoy, why the decoy would be stronger is because it's shorter. When you take a piece of metal, if I have to give you a piece of rebarb and it's 8 foot long, you can bend that thing around. If I gave you a piece of rebarb that was 2 foot long, you can't bend it. So this decoy, even though the gauge hook is very similar to this rebarb, the decoy can handle up to 20-pound test lines. So that's why I put it in the standard range right here. You can use that hook with pretty heavy line, especially if you know how to modulate your line tension. That's probably that's really all I use when I'm in this line range right here with soft plastics. I'll use rebarbs, I'll use my offset worm hook, and I'll use the decoy. This is for wackies. Um, the rebarbs, Carolina rig, some light Texas rig. In the fall, I flip a light Texas rig a lot. Light Texas rig, and then offset worms, Texas rigs, C rig. What's something else y'all might would throw? That's just what I use it for. You could find something else. As long as you're in this line range right here, you're fine. That's the main thing. Pay attention to the line range. These 3 categories are all about the line sizes. That's all this is about, is line sizes. Okay, last category, and then we'll take questions and close this bad boy down, okay? That's our last category. The heavy duties. The F-250s. The F-550s. The heavy duties. Listen, I only really got one hook for that. That's a BKK. This hook's a BKK 4-aught. I don't know what they call their flipping hook, but it's just a flipping hook with a Teflon. I don't think that's a Teflon. Some type of polymer keeper on it. Can you see that keeper on that? It's got a keeper on it for my plastic. I use this. This is going to be for flipping braid. My braid is never going to be under 30-pound test for heavy cover, and up to 50. I will still use it for sometime I finish like 20-pound test flipping 20-pound test fluorocarbon. Sometimes I'll use 25-pound test fluorocarbon in Florida. Occasionally, if I feel like, if I just got it in my head that the fish are pressured and I want to use fluorocarbon instead of braid, if it's just in my brain, then I'll use 25-pound test fluorocarbon in Florida or flipping grass. I don't believe it makes a difference, but if it makes a difference in my mind, I will grab 25-pound test fluorocarbon instead of braid at times. It's very rare, but at times I will do that. That's the only heavy cover hook I got, y'all. I'll like, and this goes to, I don't care if it's to the point where I'm using braid or 25-pound test. That's the only hook that I trust. The reason being, these hooks, a true heavy cover hook is going to have a welded gap, a welded hook eye. Some of these hooks, almost all these other hooks, like you're probably saying, well, Brian, why don't you use braid with this? This is an eagle claw. Am I holding this right? Sorry, I didn't have that in the middle of the screen. That gap is just, it's just folded over. Like they just took a pair of pliers and folded it over. So it's not that good. Where, you know, like your braid will pull through that. Your braid will open this up, is what I'm trying to say. Your braid will open that hook gap up. I'll try to get it closer where you can see. Can you see that? This is the offset. It has a folded hook eye. Can you see it at all? I know it
Looks
may be
good.
tough. Okay. Now I want you to look at this one. This is a welded eye. Sometimes they'll put resin in them too. Let's see, am I getting it right about there? That one's welded, circular, closed, shut. So the line, the braid can't slip through that. There's no gap in that line tie. The braid can't slip through. It's the only hook I use for heavy cover fishing. Bushes, grass, lily pads, that hook. Don't ask me, have you ever used? No, BKK 4-aught. I'll use a 3 or 4. I like to try to not use 5 if I can get out of it, because just the rebarb analogy I use. If I had an 8-foot piece of rebarb, I could bend that thing easily. But when you have a piece of rebarb that's a foot long, it's hard to bend it. So I feel like the shorter hook has less parabolic bend. So I try not to go over 4, and I really prefer 3 if I can get away with it. So just those 2 sizes for 20-pound test braid or more. Okay, that's all. Those are the listen, y'all. I kid you not, Mike. I'm gonna go back over to the big camera now. I think I can just go over there, right?
Yep.
You swap me over. Let me mute this thing so it doesn't start doing all that crazy stuff.
Okay.
Oh, I got you.
Oh, it's still doing it.
I got it. Hold on. There. It's fixed.
Okay. Okay. You can hear me okay?
Yep. Oh. You just muted yourself.
Got it. Okay. So what was that? Let me look. I don't remember how many hooks that was. Let me count them for you. So I have an owner mosquito, wide gap finesse wacky. I have a offset worm hook. I have a rebarb and a heavy cover hook. I have 5 hooks to do all of my soft plastic fishing with, outside of jig heads. Now, that same principle that I just gave y'all about, same principle I just gave you about line size, etc. Use that for your jig heads when you're about to throw a swim bait. When you're about to throw anything, use that same principle of thinking about the line size and the rod that you're going to use, and pick your hooks accordingly. Simple as that. Don't make it any more complicated than that. Think about it in those 3 categories. Am I going to be fishing finesse, light wire? Am I just going to be standard casting it out with a bait caster with 15-pound test, 17-pound test, no bigger than 20, standard hook? Am I going to be throwing this god doggone jig in the freaking jungle and doing a Greg Hackney hook set on it? You need a heavy cover, big old gaff hook. Don't make it any more complicated than that. I'll talk to y'all for an hour and a half, probably. Hour and a half. And that's really all you need to know. You got 3 categories. That's all I got for y'all tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I covered everything. I hope you have a bountiful catch in this straight up fishing King in the Ring tournament over the next few days. Mike, did we have any questions before we jump off of this bad boy?
I think one real quick was
Okay.
what's the difference between the pound or hashtag, the number size, and the aught size?
It's like metric. It's like metric and standard in your wrenches. So I'm assuming he's talking about like a number 2 hook versus a 2/0.
Yeah.
As far as I know, it's no different than me saying an 8mm or a 7/16. As far as I know, if somebody else knows any different, speak up. I think the 2/0, 3/0, 4/0 was an American thing that we use here in the States for years. And then number 2, number 3, number 4 is more of a metric deal that they used in Europe, overseas, Japan, China, Asia. If somebody knows any different, that's the way I've always interpreted. But if you know any different, let me know. The reason I say that is because most of all the hooks that are made in or Japanese manufacturers, it'll be, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. But I could be wrong on that. And then back in the day when I was using like a true turn, they were always 1/0, 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, which were American hooks. So let me know if y'all know anything different than that. But that's been my experience so far.
The only other thing that I'm seeing a bunch of discussion about, and I'm not really tracking all of it, but it's that you need to get some hoodies that are WWGD. What would Gerald do?
What would Gerald do? I use Gerald a lot. I probably do use Gerald a lot. Y'all gonna have me and Swindle in a fight. I did text him about a month ago, and he texted me back. Somebody done said something to him, I bet. Yeah, so somebody's talking about, I think it was wire size. It's perfect. Gerald's cartoons. Oh, boy. I see it. I think we're good, all right? Am I seeing any more?
Yeah, I think we're
good.
Speak now.
Hey, y'all.
Guys.
Yeah, speak now. We're going to jump off here. Appreciate y'all. Any questions that come up about hooks, you know the deal. Drop them in the comment section of the community section. Real quick, I want to tell y'all about this one last thing before I get off of here. I mentioned in the app today, I want to start doing a new series this month called Is It Worth the Money? I know y'all had a roundtable last week, and y'all were, I love the idea of this. Everybody was sharing their rigs and talking about just their rig, what they put on them, their accessories, etc. And I would love to continue with that more. And so over the next couple, for the next couple weeks, the month of July, I want to ask a couple of you to join me on a live to talk about that very thing. Let's just pick a product and let's talk about, number one, how much it costs. What problem does it solve for you? What problem does it claim to solve? Does it actually solve that problem for you? And have you found out any other information about it? And then let you rate it. Simple as that. I want to do that with a couple of you guys here in the app. And then don't forget, you can post videos in the app just like I do every day or every other day or a couple times a week. So feel free. I did one today. I bought these things I hang up my kayaks called a tie boss. They made it look so good in the ads, but then when I got them, they work, but it's not as easy as they made it look. So it's not like you don't need to get them, but just know you're going to have to get a 200-pound kayak up above your head if you think you're going to hang it from the ceiling. And this is not to bash companies, because I remember somebody commented, like, if you don't want to hear what I got to say about most company stuff, no, this is not going to be a bashing company series. What this is, hey, I have this product, and it's very valuable to me, and it helps me in these ways. Maybe it will be good for you, too. That's all. I have this product. It's good for me for this, but I found out that it doesn't really do this as well, but it does that as well. That's all I want this series to be. Okay? So we're going to work on that. I've got some live schedule with that. I'm going to be asking at least 4 of you during this month. I hope to join me on that. And I may even let some of you guys lead a live to talk about your products too. There's a couple guys I know are completely capable of doing that I'm about to reach out to see if they would mind hosting a live, because I have like a tournament next week, and then I got ICAST next week, and then a tournament next week, and it's like, oh man, how am I going to actually do this? It always seems like a great idea, like, oh, I could just shoot it in my hotel, and then somehow you never get to your hotel the way you're supposed to, and I don't want to lose the momentum we got going here. So I may even actually see if somebody's interested in hosting a live themselves. Okay? Thank y'all for tuning in tonight. Our next live is maybe Wednesday at 12 p.m. or something like that, I think. I don't remember what we're talking about. Maybe it was one of those product reviews, I feel like. So we'll do that. Thank y'all. Signing off. Have a good rest of your night.
See ya.